We should be live right now. Hopefully, the sound and the video and everything else is okay. Well, welcome everyone. It's been a while since I've streamed. It's been some time since I've streamed. Since I have streamed, I don't really have much of an excuse. It's just I have a lot of, I guess just a lot of things going on right now, etc., etc. And it was pretty difficult for me to find a good time to stream or to make a new video or produce something. But I kind of thought that over the last couple of days, over a lot of things, made me kind of think about this topic. I usually don't get into like pure politics. This is going to be one of the very few videos where I get into the pure politics aspect of things. And even though it is Lent, which hopefully you're all doing well in that regard, keep fighting and all of that. This will be a very harsh video. I can kind of foresee that it's going to be a very, very harsh video. And maybe I might end up contributing to that harshness or something like that, but I'll try not to. I'll try to be more impartial, but it's not going to be harsh because I have some personal misgivings or anything like that. Rather, it's going to be because I think a lot of people need to hear some of the things that I'm about to say. For those who don't know, for those who don't know what I am doing on my channel, what I'm about, I'm an Orthodox Christian in Turkey, and I do videos on Orthodox Christian theology. 95% of my videos are pretty much purely theological, really, to be honest with you. A few times I make videos about some other stuff as well, but it's really about Orthodox theology. That's the main thing that I'm doing. And it's been what I've been doing, I guess, for 3 years now. It's been 3 years, I guess. And as I've said, I don't really have much of a dog in this fight, even though I do live in a Muslim country, but I'm not like some super cringy, like ex-Muslim person, right? That you see on Reddit. First of all, I hate Reddit. I think Reddit is one of the worst websites ever. Secondly, I think basing your personality, whether it's online or offline, about what you used to be and what you're not anymore, like basing your moving from something that you think is bad is a good thing. I believe that it's a good thing. Basing your personality and constantly hammering it home, I think that is sad. And I think it's sad because it means you haven't really let it go, right? You haven't really let it go. You're allowing it to poison you still. You're allowing it to affect you still to this day, which I think it's not a behavior we should be having as Orthodox Christians. We can't have those kinds of feelings affect us negatively in that way. So I don't have those kinds of stupid motivations. I do have some motivation, politically speaking, in the sense that I do care about the future of Europe. I'm not some general European nationalist or anything like that, but I do care about the future of Europe because, well, I was born in Europe. I was born in Norway. I lived there for quite some time. So there's that. And a lot of my friends, a lot of people I hold dear, a lot of, I suppose, my appreciation for history, for culture, for even science, for even, philosophy and things like that. A lot of that happens to be from Europe. And I think a lot of the values, even from Europeans today, are values that I very much am happy to see. And it makes me mad. It makes me fumingly mad, in a sense, to see a lot of idiots, whether they're Muslim or whether they're even European themselves, saying very stupid things like Islam is right about women, or Islam is based, or the one that is really wrong, Islam will save Western civilization. These kinds of slogans, they tend to get very popular. I've seen them become popular, in the 2014s, 15s, right? Like somewhere, like eventually kind of grew. But what I want to get to is, well, first of all, that kind of sentiment has been responded to by a lot of people in 2015, 2016. I don't think I need to explain to you a lot of what happened between those times. I think a lot of people knew that it was a time of chaos in many regards, many violent extremist attacks and such. But also kind of how shall I say, bit of a more like an ambiguous stance of a lot of the good Muslims too, that made me notice okay, something is going on, right? About this kind of situation. And a lot of people realize at that time that Islam is not going to be the savior of Western civilization. It's not going to be what's going to prevent feminism. It's not going to be what's going to prevent Skittles propaganda or anything like that. And in this stream, I want to explain why it cannot do that, why it is unable to do that, by giving examples from Islamic societies themselves. Which gets into another thing, another issue that people might point out in some of the things that I'm about to say. Oh well, the problems are it's just Islamophobia, and the problems are that they don't have enough money, they're poor, and that's why they do these things. I don't find these excuses to be good excuses. Okay, I think those excuses are leftist bullshit, and if you parrot that, then I'm not going to take your argument seriously. The assumption that people do bad things because they don't have enough money is something that has already been easily disproved by showcasing various different studies and various different research about how, in fact, there are certain other factors which I am unable to get into right now because YouTube. But the different factors that I'm not allowed to talk about are the factors that actually contribute to behavior more stronger than financial issues. Finance does play a role. Okay, finance does play a role in how people behave, but it's part of it, it's not the whole story. That idea is a complete liberal idea, and if you're a religious person, you actually take that idea seriously, then something is wrong with you. Because if you're a religious person and you actually think that, then you're not really, there's a contradiction, right? Then because you're basically basing your own understanding of human free choice and human free will based on earthly external circumstances. And that's a very difficult position for a religious person to hold, I think, logically and consistently. So, we're not going to take they don't have enough money problem seriously, right? Whether it's in the Middle East or whether they're in Europe, we're not going to take the whole, there's Islamophobia and they're being mistreated and all this kind of stuff. We're not going to take that seriously either. That has also, again, been very thoroughly debunked. Not with this specific issue at hand, but more so with when it comes to like examples from Skittles community, right? I think Sam Hyde has a funny little video maybe where he makes that point, right? Like he shows the example of these people do the Sudoku, even if they're in a tolerant place, right? So the problem isn't that they're bullied or anything like that. And that's not an excuse again. So where's my other? Okay, there it is. So hopefully you enjoy some of the content that I'm about to provide for your enjoyment. And I guess one thing that I want to start with, so I want to kind of get into the whole argument, right? Let's try to emulate the argument a little bit, right? We see this with people, especially with people like Sneako. He recently tweeted that Islam is like the last stand against, wokeness, and all this kind of stuff. You see this from people like that other guy who every time you see a clip of him, like you'll know who I'm talking about when I describe him. Like every time you see a clip of him, he always has OnlyFans people on, right? And he's like trying to like refute them and stuff. Like that guy, and Andrew Tate and people like that. Islam is going to save Western civilization. It's to stand against wokeness and all this kind of stuff. And you see people that are, I guess, Maktab adjacent, saying stuff like, Islam is right about women, and other stuff like that. And the basic idea is that Islam is a good response against feminism, against the whole alphabet soup stuff, against the whole wokeness stuff. And from the that's basically the argument. And from the get-go, this argument can be very easily refuted. I'm going to get into the details, but we can very easily refute this argument just by pointing out the fact that, especially ever since 2014, it just happens to be the case that this based Islam is being constantly backed up and prepped by the elites. Moreover, it just so happens that based Islam constantly agrees with leftist politicians who are trying to eradicate genuine, actual traditional European culture. And I want to show you a very clear example of that, very, very clear example precisely of something like that happening. Again, a lot of these people, a lot of Muslims are getting into political positions in Europe. Massive mistake, Europe, by the way, take it from someone who's Turkish, okay? But This is a clear example of this. So let's look at the situation, okay? Katie Forbes is against Skittles' marriage, right? She's a Christian and she is against Skittles' marriage. Whereas Humza Yusuf, who is a Muslim, who openly says he's a Muslim, supports and promotes Skittles' marriage. Do you need more evidence of what's exactly going on? This, remember Sadiq Khan, mayor of London? Do you remember that? Why is he a total leftist liberal? I thought Islam is the last stance against wokeism. No. They're the ones working with them. They're the ones working with wokeness. I mean, that itself is more than proof enough that what this whole point is nonsense. And it's very, very funny that someone like Andrew Tate, especially, is talking about how, it's going to save Western civilization, because one of the very interesting aspects of, Muslims that come to Europe, right? A lot of people point out, Muslims have family values, they have family values, they have very important values against liberalism and degeneracy and stuff like that. And, for example, Muslims are against consuming alcohol. And yet them selling alcohol is used as an example of their tolerance and other such virtues. That is one of the worst things that can actually happen. And let me explain what I mean by that. If it's fine for a Muslim to sell and produce and to distribute things to people that their own religion forbids to them, if they are fine with doing that, then where is the stop? Where is the pit stop? Okay, it's not going to be alcohol. The alcohol is not the pit stop. For example, what about prostitution? Is it fine for a Muslim to do prostitution? Well, according to this logic, it's totally fine. This is precisely why you have those kinds of rings. This is why precisely you have Andrew Tate, right, who became a Muslim, who still thinks that the cam girl operation that he does is completely okay, right? He doesn't see a problem with this. He, in fact, refers to himself as Lord, as various different divine titles. And the guy who made him Muslim or something like that, he was on a podcast and he literally said, Andrew Tate is saying a lot of heretical things, a lot of idolatrous things about himself. I mean, imagine if we had a high-profile convert to Orthodox Christianity. He was baptized, and 2 months later, he started to say complete and utterly heretical nonsense. Okay, the person that baptized him admitted that yes, his sponsor went on a podcast and said, yeah, he's doing these kinds of things. I mean, that guy will be utterly ashamed, and he should be utterly ashamed. So should that guy who made him Muslim or whatever, right? Or made the recording of him doing the Muslim prayers, right? He should be kind of ashamed because Andrew is his responsibility in a sense. In some sense, he has spiritual responsibility over him. But in the Islamic world, that's totally okay, right? Totally okay because, Andrew Tate is only being supported because Muslims are hoping that he's going to change his lifestyle, blah, blah, blah. Then why is Tristan Tate, who at the very least is a nominal Christian, why is he being supported? Okay, I mean, that's a very simple question. Why is he supported? He does the same things, okay? But you don't have the religion excuse. Is it, he's his brother. Like, okay, so you really care about him so much that you're going to give that pass to his brother. Yeah, I don't believe that. I don't believe that excuse. So what am I trying to get to at? What I'm trying to get to is that from a very point blank aspect of this, I have one more example before I get into some other examples, right? We can already see that that Muslims are not based. They vote for liberal politicians. They enable for the disintegration of Western societies. You will think that they will not allow for that to happen, but they actually work together with the people who want to make that happen. Okay, they are completely fine with doing parasitic behavior as long as it positively affects them and as long as they're not the ones doing it. That's a horrible thing. That's a terrible thing, by the way. That's not allowed in Christianity. You can't do it. If prostitution obviously is not allowed in Christianity, you can't be a pimp as a Christian. That's a contradiction. That's a sin. And your priest will say, you need to stop doing this, right? Obviously, people don't meet to that idea, but I'm speaking about in terms of principles. It's not the same. It is not the same. Okay, this is something that is allowed in within these people, really. And another example, that, well, I guess another, well, there's so many of them, but I mean, there's also the point about how various different immigrants and refugees happen to fill up the prisons in France, for example, right? Oh, it's because they have no money, right? That's the excuse we usually get. They were brought here, they were given free housing, they were given free food, but they're getting bullied by the mean Westerners. The weak Westerner is bullying the strong Muslims, which that ends up making them. It's because of Islamophobia. It pushes them into being violent criminals. Again, that doesn't make any sense. That makes zero sense. Okay, zero, absolutely zero sense. Right? I can understand what that can influence individual groups of people, but whole groups of people, that's a massive assumption. Anyways, let's see what else I have in store for you, out of my massive list. Because as I said, well, as I pointed out, there are many examples from, like, someone might object to some things that I'm saying, but, well, you're giving examples from the Muslims in the West, right? But we want to make them in some sense socially and culturally like they are in the Middle East, right? So that will mean that, these problems won't exist, these disintegrations won't happen, and they will have good values just like they have in the Middle East. Before I get to that point, finally remembered what I was referring to. A popular Muslim apologist, Muhammad Hijab, after Roe v. Wade got revoked, which is a massive victory against all people who are traditionalist, does he celebrate this victory with the traditionalists, right? That he's on the same side with based Islam, right? Remember, based Islam is a Western society. They were still Western civilization. You know what he did instead? He made a tweet saying that the Islamic position on abortion is not identical to the Catholic position. The Hanbali school, for example, allows abortion up to 40 days, and the other schools allow it up to 120 if there are extenuating circumstances. Beyond that, someone who does abortion pays blood. Oh, well, at least he said that abortion is bad. Yeah, after 4 months. I don't care about that. And it says, I don't know if any Islamic scholar who said that abortion is to be treated as murder. That is proof and evidence that your religion is wrong. That's proof and evidence that it's wrong. 95% of biologists agree life begins at conception. The Bible, the Old Testament, Scripture says life begins at conception. By that logic, abortion is murder at any stage, no exception. Okay, at any stage, at any freaking stage. And yet, in Islam, oh, it's fine. 40 days after, until 40 days, until 120 days, it's fine. It's A-okay. That's scientifically wrong. That's philosophically wrong. I know why the philosophical reasons has to do with, I forgot the exact terminology, but it's about the soul being embedded into the body or something like that, right? Some kind of philosophical presupposition, which is not something that the early Christians believed. So we don't have that kind of a problem. But Catholics and Muslims have that kind of a problem. At least Catholics are pro-life. I can say that about them. Muslims aren't. This is precisely why abortion isn't cared about in Turkey, for example. It's not a big deal. Oh yeah, thousands and millions of kids are being destroyed in the womb. Not a big deal, right? They're not speaking, at least Roman Catholics and Orthodox, right, are speaking out against this. They're at least defending the life of the innocent. Where is this value? Now, let's get to a very important question. Why is it that Islam seemingly has these good qualities like patriarchy and traditional family values and things like this, and in opposition to deviancy and stuff like that? How come they have these kinds of good values and they just stay away from us? They just vote against us. They just act against us, right? They in fact speak out against us. They do things to destroy us even. Why are they doing this? Well, well, my friend. Well, my friend, there's many different explanations, but I think a very good explanation has to do with certain metaphysical assumptions about their religion. Now that sounds very strange. Metaphysical assumptions, that doesn't make any sense. So you're basically saying their idea about God, their theology, etc., that has something to do with it. And I'm not going to make an argument like, oh, this verse in the Quran says that. That's not my argument. I have a very much more deeper argument than that, right? It has to do with that, right? And a big part of it has to do with the rejection of the crucifixion and various different narratives in the Bible. Now, I'm going aside, I'm moving aside the whole argument about, can God die on the cross? Can God die? How Christ Jesus is God? How can God die on the cross? How can God die on the cross? Yeah, I'm not gonna entertain an argument. I've already entertained that argument in various different videos. That's not the video for it. All right. But the whole narrative structure in Islamic religion, the whole narrative about a man sacrificing himself for the salvation of others, for the sake of others, that central theme in Christianity, right, is explicitly rejected and condemned as weakness in Islam. This is precisely why in the Quran, what they believe instead is that there was a substitution of some sort. It wasn't Jesus that was crucified, it was someone else, right? That's the basic mainstream idea. That is a very clear demonstration. And if you like talk to these apologists, and you know what they will say? They will say, well, you believe your God was crucified on the cross. That's weakness. They think that's weakness. Notice what is going on. They think self-sacrifice for the good of others is a form of weakness. That's a fundamental part of their religion. I know that they probably have some religious text or religious scholar or someone they revere probably said something important about self-sacrifice, and he made some quote about self-sacrifice is the love of God or something like that, like some wise sagely quote. Okay, yeah, they might have that, but did they actually have that? They might have some wise sagely Muslim guy making that quote, but did they actually have that in their religion? Did they actually have it in their narrative, in their scripture? No, they have the rejection of it. That is the point. They have the absolute complete rejection. So don't be surprised when push comes to shove, they're not going to have your interest in mind. Yeah, it might feel cool when Christians and Muslims come together and protest the indoctrination of children at schools and stuff like that. Yeah, that might make you feel cool. But the only reason those Muslims are there is because they're afraid of their own children. They don't care about yours. They don't care if your child ends up becoming, a deviant or anything like that. They don't care about that. They care about their own. That's why they are there. They're not there because for you, right? And a great illustration of this, and a big reason why I'm making this video, is because in Antioch, very recently, there was a video that came out. I'm going to probably upload it to my channel with the subtitle and translation. In Antioch, there's a gathering place for Christians where they give out food for people, right? Not just Christians, but for everyone. They give out food. They give out a place to rest. They clean the area. They try to clean the areas that that's dirty or that's affected by the earthquake, right? And they are very, these are kind people, right? These are people who are treating pretty much everyone, giving everyone help and doing the best they can. And there's a video recorded by certain Muslim imams and these people are probably in some kind of Muslim religious order, by the way, but they're recording this video, right? And they're saying, look, and they're explaining all of these things, and these are what the Christians are doing, this is what they need to give food, and they're basically concluding, yeah, I came there and they hugged me, they kissed my hand, they treated me with respect. These people are doing very advanced missionary work. That's what he said. He said that they're doing very advanced missionary work. Well, the one who's doing the missionary work is you. When you are that big of an idiot, of course, that's going to be a missionary work, because no one's going to look at you and say, wow, I'm going to become a Muslim. That guy sounds he sounds like he's part of a religion that sounds very good, right? No, you're doing the missionary work for us. Thank you. I really appreciate you saying that stupid nonsense so that we can have a better reputation, right, of actually helping people. Now, I understand, Not hashtag not all Muslims. In fact, hashtag not most Muslims. I wouldn't go as far as to say that, in Turkey at the very least. Hashtag not most Muslims. But the point that I'm trying to get to is that it is prevalent enough where someone has to say about it. Just like the problem in Roman Catholicism, the problem that I'm referring to, right? The priest, the little problem. It's a minority. Hashtag not all Roman Catholics. Hashtag not most Roman Catholics. Hashtag not most Roman Catholic priests. But it's significant enough where it's a problem. It's the same thing that I'm trying to get at, right? This is something that is very normalized in this country. This kind of attitude about disgust at people trying to do good because they're of a different religion, they can't do good, right? Because they're gonna convert like 5-6 people, right? And we gotta stop that. I mean, if these people did the help themselves, the Christians that are helping the people in Antioch will be so insignificant, no one will even know, right? If they themselves were doing these things. I mean, that's another point. That's exactly what I will say if I was there. I mean, what are you doing? You're recording these people. You're not helping them. What are you doing? Are you helping people? Are you housing people? Are you giving them food? No, you're not doing any of that. No, you are bitching on TikTok. That's what you're doing. Keep on doing. Keep doing this. And what I'm trying to get at is that if you think Christians are meanie and evil, wait until you see the Muslim clergy. Okay, wait until you experience that, because I don't even agree with this. I don't even agree with most of the criticism that Muslim clergy get. I don't agree with this. But as someone who has been friends with European non-religious, anti-Christian people and Turkish anti-Muslim people, as someone who knows the both sides quite well, both perspectives quite well, the criticism you get from the bad experience you get from anti-Muslim Turkish people is 100 times worse. Okay, I can tell you that. Again, this is not a proof of Christianity being true over. It's not even a proof against Islam. It's not even an argument about it. What it is an argument about is that it's an argument about the kind of lifestyle that you're promoting when you're saying based Islam, when you want countries to be more like Muslim countries. That is the kind of lifestyle that you want to have. Those are the kind of negative things that you are also bringing to yourself. That's the point that I'm trying to make. That's what you're going to end up getting. So, having pointed all of these things, what I want to move away from Muslims in Europe, right? And more so to the Middle East themselves, right? Because again, the theory is, well, look at Dubai. It's very prosperous. It has Muslim values, so it must be socially good. They don't. Sneako, for example, made a tweet, something like, they don't use pronouns in the Middle East. Oh wow, they don't use pronouns. Oh my gosh, they don't use pronouns, guys. That must mean they're so cool, right? They don't use pronouns, so that means they're cool. That means everything is okay, right? Not a good story, not the case. Now, if I was a dishonest, meanie, bad person, I will point out how the Ottoman Empire was one of the first nations to decriminalize Skittles. I'm not going to talk much about that. If I was a meanie, I will point out how Turkey was one of the first countries, despite being Muslim, it was one of the first countries to give the right to vote to women, but I'm not going to mention that. What I am going to mention I'm going to mention the big issues in even the good Muslim countries, and I have some stuff to back some of the things that I'm going to say up. So the first thing I want to talk about is just the whole OnlyFans Instagram stuff in Dubai. Okay, most of you probably already know this, but Dubai is one of the most decadent places in the world. It's if an Instagram famous woman goes to Dubai to meet, men in Dubai, there's basically a 90% chance that she was used as, I'm not going to even say it, but you get the idea. She was, they do very impure things, and I'm not just talking about sexual relations. Okay, I'm talking about messed up. I'm talking about actually messed up stuff, right? On a completely unrelated note, Scatman has very nice music. It might be a bit related to what I'm saying, but I think you can connect the dots yourself. So that's kind of a prevalent problem in a lot of these societies, right? We had the World Cup in Qatar. I think I made this point in the video about World Cup. Obviously, I'm very happy with the kind of stance that you saw from Qatar about some of the stuff that the atheistic West wanted to push. But I think a lot of people are missing the point about this, and I want to kind of make a little of an aside note, is that you need to realize that Christianity, and academically speaking, we're talking about Roman Catholic Christianity, we're talking about Protestant Christianity, right? Specifically, has been under attack by the academics for at least 2 centuries. In my personal opinion, since the Renaissance, right? That's my take. Complete attack to subvert and change the religion and disassemble it to a point where it is basically rejected and not considered to be an actual religion that can be respected and trusted, right? This was a process that took a very, very, very long time in the West. This process is only recently being undertaken in the Islamic world. What is the point that I'm trying to get at? The point that I'm trying to get at is that all of these liberal academics that you guys are so happy to use against Christianity, in 10, 20 years, give or take, you're going to have your own Bart Ehrmans. You're going to have your own academics that's going to be saying the same exact things that these academics were saying. And you're going to have nowhere to run, absolutely nowhere to run. And that is precisely because once you open the floodgates of the whole operation of questioning the faith, and I'm not just saying questioning the faith in terms of, is it true or is it false, but decompartmentalizing and disassembling the religion into tons of different pieces. When that occurs, say goodbye to your religion. You're going to have what happened in Europe, you're going to have that happening in the Middle East. This is precisely why you have various different, waves of immigration, both in America and in Europe. A lot of people talk about demographic change. The real change is going to be when a lot of these academics, Muslim academics, meet with the Western liberal academics. They, mix with each other. Then they go back to the Middle East. Yeah, see you when that happens. Let me give you some examples of that happening already in Turkey itself, right? Turkish academics. You know what the mainstream Turkish academic take about the Ottoman Empire is? The mainstream take is that the Ottoman Empire was Skittles friendly, for example. That's just one of the examples. This is prevalent enough in the academia that I myself have heard and seen this multiple times in academia here in Turkey. Okay, it's something that you hear very regularly, right? Now, it might be true, it might not be true. I personally don't think it's true. I do think there was some aspects of it, secret and private, but it wasn't really okayed, so to speak, publicly. But it's an angle of attack that is going on, right? Now you're going to say, well, it's not true. It doesn't matter if it's true or false. These people don't really care about that. That's your mistake if you're thinking that. There's a lot of things that they say about Christianity that's not true. You didn't care about that when people like me were pointing that out. So I think that's going to be not a fun time, both for Christians and for Muslims, to be honest, because it's not going to be, we're not happy. Unlike some people, we're not happy when our enemy prevails, even if they prevail over another enemy. That's not a good thing. But let me get back to the whole Middle Eastern dynamics and stuff like that. This is a point that Father Daniel Sissoko made, and I definitely agree with this point. You have this idea that Islam is this traditional society that is pure. Well, 80% of opium is produced in Afghanistan. Now you might say, well, okay, but the real Muslims, the radical Muslims, it's going to be very funny to point this out because the previous administration of Afghanistan, they were very happy with actual, pederasty. Like they were happy with that. That was bachabazi, right? Remember that? That's something that the Taliban eliminated. So you will think the Taliban will eliminate also that. No, it's exactly what I previously said, right? Even if they don't use it themselves, they're completely fine with producing and exporting it and making it available for everyone. And the Taliban Taliban themselves are conducting, right? And they're big players in the drug trade. Now, isn't that interesting? 80% world started. Afghanistan accounts for 80% of the total supply of opium. 80%. Right now, you might say Afghanistan is a troubled area, it's a chaotic area. That's not a good example. Okay, so what will be a good example? Saudi Arabia, right? Saudi Arabia will be somewhat of a decent example. I mean, it's a lot more stable. It's a lot more. It's better. I mean, it probably shouldn't have a drug epidemic or anything like that. It shouldn't have a crazy drug epidemic. completely eradicating the Saudi youth, right? Should that yeah, no, that is not happening, right? Wrong. 40% of Saudi Arabians between the ages of 12 and 22 are addicted to meth. Okay, we're not talking about weak stuff like weed. We're talking about meth. 40%. 40%. Do you know what 40% looks like? 40%. 4 out of the 10 people you meet in Saudi Arabia that is between the ages of 12, by the way, 12 and 22 is addicted to opium based Islam, right? That's based Islam. They take a drug called Captagon specifically, which is a form of methamphetamine. Blah, 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 I can't say it properly. So again, when you're talking about based Islam, Islam will say Western civilization. This is what you're trying to export to your country, okay? And they're not saying stuff like, shisha or anything like that, no, right? Straight up meth, okay? Straight up meth. And there's, it's not just this. It's not just this source. There's academic sources that point out to this, right? Again, a lot of Muslim apologists. What do they love to do? Christian academics say, well, here, academics say that Saudi Arabians are addicted to drugs. So when you have based Islam, what we have learned so far is you have sexual degeneracy on the down low, but you have that. You have massive drug addiction. Now let's get to the next one, divorce. That's going to be very surprising, but there's a video by someone called Coltrane. Now Coltrane is a MGTOW person, and we're not really friends with MGTOWs here. We're not the biggest allies of MGTOWs, even if we can appreciate some stuff. I mean, we can appreciate some stuff Muslims believe in, right? We can appreciate some stuff various different groups believe in. But obviously MGTOWs are not our friends. And Coltrane definitely is not friendly towards Christianity. He's pretty much against Christianity. He thinks it is bad against when it comes to male dating strategy and stuff like that. But he has a video called Islam is Right About Women, where he gets very deep into researching Islamic society and the male-female dynamics. And he very much debunks this notion that Islam is this base patriarchal society where men are treated favorably and women are put in their place and stuff like that. That is completely wrong. He points out, for example, that in Islamic families, you have the woman controlling the finances. The woman has no financial responsibility. The man has the complete financial burden. There's various different customs and traditions that the man must follow to monetarily provide not only for his wife, but also for the family of the wife. This is embedded within the religion itself. And moreover, I can attest to this fact that even in nominally Muslim families in Turkey, the whole vetting thing, the whole vetting stuff that goes on in Muslim families, that's a complete industry. You need to realize that people get into debts trying to make these massive, these massive, really cool ceremonies, marriage ceremonies, and stuff like that. It's very prevalent in Muslim societies, and again, a lot of people take in debt in order to maintain that, to do that. That is not healthy. That's not a good thing. That's not good. That's not good for men. Really, that's not good for a woman either. That's a very bad thing. It's a very bad custom to have, to be honest with you. A much healthier custom will just be marrying in a church, doing a marriage ceremony inside a church instead of spending, thousands of dollars into trying to do a massive wedding ceremony where indebted to various different strangers and stuff like that. But there's a lot of stuff that he also talks about, like divorce. In Islamic countries, what's really interesting about Islamic countries is the divorce rate, although it's not as high as America, which, I mean, when you compare to America, that's usually not a good thing. But it's not although it's not as high as America, it's very close to being as high as America throughout the Middle Eastern world. Divorce is very much an epidemic. Now, contrast this to Christianity, right? Based Islam, divorce is very normalized. What is the case in Christianity? Well, divorce is not allowed. Divorce is something that is not allowed. We don't do divorce, right? Divorce is at most permitted as condescending to human weakness. But divorce, we believe divorce is sin, except if it's due to sexual immorality and stuff like that, right? But outside of that, I mean, it's sinful. It's something that you should be doing. In the Islamic world, it's not seen as that, right? So much for strong family values. We can certainly appreciate some strong family values from the Islamic world, but polygamy is not one of them either. I mean, that's one of the more obvious ones that is coming out is polygamy, right? The idea that a man can marry 4 wives is one of the worst things that can happen for men themselves. How can it be the case? Well, allow me to demonstrate it in this way. Well, if you have Chaddullah, a bunch of Chaddullahs having 4 wives, and they can, by the way, they can divorce them and find other wives as well, right? Well, what does that mean for the other men? Well, what it means is that there are less women to choose from in the dating pool. Well, once you have that, you have, guess what? Hypergamy. Again, you still have hypergamy. You still have female dating strategies that work against men. Yeah, sure, you might have arranged marriages, you might have these customs and traditions, but you also simultaneously have Western atheistic influence in the Middle East kind of rearing its head in, giving this idea of women's liberation and stuff like that. And even, okay, let's say women aren't liberated, so to speak. There are still mechanisms as that the Quran itself sanctions for women to use against men, to abuse men, and to use to their advantage. And by the way, this idea that women cannot divorce their husbands, that's not true. By the way, that's not a true statement. That's not fully a true statement. That is, women can initiate divorces against their husbands for very similar reasons that we see today. And a lot of them are still pushing for no-fault divorce and stuff like that, but it's probably not going to happen in the Middle East at the very least. It does happen in the atheistic West, but I won't be surprised if that is used by various different Muslims in the West, right? So we have drugs, we had divorce, and the corruption of family values. There's a video I saw that, I think it was in a mosque where a bunch of women were literally twerking. Just kidding. I'm not going to show the video, but for obvious reasons. But seeing that actually makes me sad. It makes me really, really sad and really, really mad, because it's just this kind of behavior shouldn't be in the Islamic world. But to kind of give you an example of wokeness in Islam, I'm kind of, because I haven't really scripted a lot of what I'm about to say, but what I have said so far at the very least as well. But one thing that crossed my mind is that in Europe, it's very interesting that in Europe you already have female imams, right? You already have these like little funny, pro Skittles, pro liberal, female imam, female mosque and stuff like, female led mosques and stuff like that in parts of Europe. It's already happening. It's already occurring. Obviously, a Muslim can say, well, they're not real Muslims, etc. But I mean, that kind of begs the other question. Well, what is your ecclesial structure where you can normatively state that this is something that that this makes this mosque not an actual mosque and not an actual activity? You don't really have that kind of ecclesiological advantage that we have as Orthodox Christians, where we can actually delineate between what is a true church and what is not a true church, because we have that normative authority. That normative authority is a lot weaker, if it even exists, in the Islamic world. Having said that, let's get to the problems in the Middle East. Again, it's the problems that the Middle East has is not just money, okay? It's not because they're bullied or stuff like that. It's not because of evil Western influence. In fact, Western influence is the reason why the Middle East is the way it is right now, in the sense that you have countries in the Middle East like the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. If you did not have Western influence, the Middle East will be entirely Turkish. Okay, we will take it over again. There's really, the only one stopping us is the United States. I'm not going to shy away from that. The only reason you have various different countries in the Middle East is because of the United States. The reason why Saudi Arabia is propped up is because of the United States. The reason why you have these based Muslim societies is because of you being propped up by the United States. Okay, if the United States did not exist right now, if they disappeared, no one will be stopping Turkey from steamrolling the entire Middle East. That is a fact. That's a very clear-cut fact. Okay, Egypt, like who? Egypt's gonna stop us? Syria's gonna stop us? No, you're not gonna stop us. No, it's gonna be the same story as the Ottoman Empire again. So you should be thanking the United States. You should be thanking the West that your countries exist today, right? That might be a bit of an evil Max moment. I don't even support this, right? I don't even support Turkey invading the Middle East or something like that. But I'm just saying, know your place, because some people might not know this, but a big reason why you have various different countries instead of just one country taking over the Middle East is precisely because a lot of these Arabic countries backstabbed the Ottomans and worked with the British, right? So a lot of Turks still have that in their memory. We still remember that, right? But again, speaking of that, on the flip side, right? You might say, "Oh, you sound a lot like a Turkish nationalist, grey wolf kind of a person." No, because Erdogan, who's this based Muslim president, has flooded Turkey with 6 million, I think, something like that, Syrian refugees. Millions of Syrian refugees are in the country right now. Exact same problems as they are in the West. I mean, I spoke about this since 2014 to everyone that I knew, and everyone laughed at me. Everyone said, "Yo, that sounds racist. You can't say that." And now those very same people are saying, "Syrians out. We don't want them over here anymore," etc., etc. Yeah, well, there you go. And Erdogan is directly responsible because Erdogan himself and his supporters basically say, "Oh, they are our Muslim brothers. They are brothers in faith. You know, we should accept them. We should help these people, etc., etc." It's the liberals in Turkey that are in fact against mass immigration in Turkey. So it's a very interesting thing that's happening here. But when you have based Islam, when you get based Islam in Europe, you think Europe is going to still remain European. You're stupid if you actually believe that. You're really dumb if you actually think that there's not going to be mass immigration in Europe. You are a very stupid and absolute. I'm not going to say that because YouTube will not like it. But you're a total idiot if you actually genuinely believe that if the Western civilization becomes based, is saved by based Islam, that you actually think that the makeup of these countries is going to remain the same. You are a very low IQ individual if you actually genuinely believe that. And I have nothing but contempt for your political beliefs. If you seriously believe that, which is precisely why if you're European, the last thing you want to do is say Islam is based, I want to accept Islam. No. That's the exact way you get replaced. That's the exact way you disappear. That's the exact way you get conquered. All right. Take it from me, from someone who's living in a country that's in the process of being conquered right now, in a sense. Okay. Now, and by the way, I'm not a total idiot. Okay. I do understand that there are Syrians that are native to Turkey, especially in Antioch. I'm not a idiot like Ümit Özdağ who thinks those should be deported as well. That's a very stupid view. Okay, those are the Syrians that have been in those lands for a very long time. That would be a very stupid thing to say. But the ones that weren't part of this land that are coming in, that is what I'm referring to. Again, based Muslims are going to say, "You're being racist. You're being racist. You can't say that. You're being an Islamophobe." Yeah, good job using leftist argumentation. That only proves my point that you're not here for the benefit, really, anyone else. Okay, you're not here for the benefit of the people. You're here for the benefit of yourself, and you're here for the benefit against these people that you are conquering. So let's call a spade a spade. Okay, when you watch me, when you watch something made by me, you're going to get honesty. Okay, you might not get a lot of things that you might not get niceness, you might not get pleasantness, you might not get some kind of professionalism. Sorry that I'm not dressed in a suit. Okay, sorry that I have an accent when I speak. I'm sure my accent is very funny, and it makes you laugh and it makes you enjoy the stream. But one thing you're going to have is that you're going to get the truth. You're going to get what I actually genuinely believe. And this is what is really happening in the world. So now let's get into another reality that you will get once you have based Islam coming to Europe, which, by the way, that's never going to happen, as I've said, because it's going to be the other way around. It's going to be the cringe West that's going to come to based Islam. That is what's going to happen. And the sooner people realize that, the better. We're already seeing traces of that happening. That's not going to stop. We're already seeing traces of that in the Middle East. We're already seeing those kinds of, politically speaking, right? People like Fethullah Gulen being used by these agencies and stuff to subvert these groups by promoting some kind of liberal Islam, for example, right? Obviously, Fethullah's stuff isn't just liberal Islam. It's a lot more heinous stuff, right? But I mean, that's the front that he used. Liberal Islam is the front that he used. I'm serious. Right? Or the Abrahamic Faith House. Why is it's very interesting. Abrahamic Faith House in the Middle East, how is it not in Europe? Cringe Europe having Abraham. No, it's the based Islamic lands. It has the Abrahamic faith house, where you have total ecumenism and one world religionism occurring in the Middle East, right? You have to ask these questions. So again, some people might, and I can anticipate some people are gonna say, well, the West is fallen too. Okay, I admit that the West is atheistic. I admit the West is secularistic. I admit that these are bad things, right? But I am comparing the secularist West with based Islam, and you're very similar. Some of you have stuff, the based Islam has some stuff that the cringe West doesn't have, but it's the same thing other way around, right? The fact that this is being a comparison is a bad thing. Whereas, let's look at, for example, Imperial Russian, right? Now, Imperial Russia, Russian Orthodox monarchy, it's obviously not perfect. We're talking about countries, they're never going to be perfect. But we see values that a lot of people desire and a lot of people need, because it's the natural, civilization is the natural condition of man. Civilization is in some ways based on the kingdom of heaven. It's a copy of the kingdom of heaven in some ways. Civilization is what man desires, right? It's the earthly goal of man to become civilized and to live in a civilized nation, or in a civilized region at the very least. And Imperial Russia, Tsarist Russia, was a civilization. Okay, obviously there's going to be leftist points and stuff like that. That's a different topic. But it had problems. It certainly had a lot of problems. But it didn't have opioid problems. It didn't have secret Skittles problems. It didn't have secret feminism problems. In fact, if we're comparing patriarchies, Imperial Russia's patriarchy is a much stronger patriarchy than Islamic patriarchy. That's a fact. Just read the Domostroy and you will see exactly what I'm referring to. It's the manual for Russian families and exactly how Russian family business is to be conducted. And it outlines the responsibilities of the man and the woman. It's very clear that you don't get this cucked thing where, oh, wifey, here's all of my finances. I give it to you and your family. You don't get that nonsense bullshit. Okay, that doesn't exist. Okay, that's nonsense. That's gynocracy. Okay, it's just a different form of it. Let me see. I recorded this one thing. I don't want to get too out of topic. Well, I guess I can kind of put a little pit stop in here by kind of capitulating. So what are you going to get? What do we already have in the Evil West? Well, in the Evil West, we have in some sense the freedom to be Christian, at least some freedom to exist in a sense. We have financial resources. We have well, I will say we don't have violence, but based ink is providing that, thankfully. So that's reducing. But we have good communities. We have decent communities. We have decent groups of civilized people where you can have honest engagements in some regard. This is something that is still valued, right? We have very basic values that you're supposed to do and perform in order to maintain civilization. Well, for all intents and purposes, the West is still a civilization. It still has a history. It still has a tradition. It still has something to back it up, right? Now, what does it have that is unfortunate? Well, what it has that is unfortunate is that it has Skittle stuff. It has liberalism. It has secularism. It has, it has various different liberal ideas, liberal economic ideas. You can say liberal political ideas. It has republicanism. I will say that's kind of a negative, right? It has a replacement ideology, an ideology of replacement of its host population, that is, it's allowing parasitism, right? And it has the power to really work for its own people, but it doesn't use that power, right? So the West is in a very, very bad shape, right? It's wokeism, it has feminism. Okay. Based Islam, yeah, I guess it doesn't have feminism. I guess it doesn't have pronouns, right? It doesn't have a lot of these things. But what does it have? Well, it has crime and violence. It has constant conflict, constant problems. It has massive drug problems. It has sexual degeneracy. It has severe cases of hypocrisy. It has clerical corruption. That's what you're getting when you have based Islam. It has demographic replacement being enabled and allowed. It has cultural replacement being allowed, right? It has a lot of these very different things. Now, on the one hand, we have violence being more normal, constant hypocrisy, clerical corruption, severe drug addiction, unparalleled, severe divorce, severe issues with family structures. Even though there's a base patriarchal structure, it has still its own problems. Compared to saying pronouns and there being skills people and there being secularism, there being feminism, well, obviously both are very shitty, and I will not want to live in either of these worlds. And so I have a problem with flies in my house. I'm not going to introduce frogs into my house. I'm not going to get like 20 frogs in my own house to get rid of the fly problem, because now then I will have a frog problem. Do you understand what I'm trying to get? Okay. You don't solve one problem by introducing another to hopefully eradicate. You know what usually happens? You get both. And as I said before, as I stated in what happens in Europe, the fact that you see very, very regularly, very typically, the constant promotion of liberalism by various different Muslims in the West, including Muslim politicians and influential Muslim people. Again, think of, for example, Sadiq Khan. That has to raise question marks about whether Islam is really going to save Western civilization. And the answer is a very clear and open no. Complete and utter and clear no. It is never going to be able to do that. In fact, if you're a Muslim and you want to save Western civilization, I have a solution. I really have. In fact, if you want to save yourself, if you want to save your own civilization, colloquially speaking, I'm trying to be respectful, I also have a solution. It's the same solution. If Muslims want to save Western civilization, here's what they do. They group each other up, right? They put themselves in a nice group. They take all they have, the resources, their culture, their food, everything that they have. They take the converts, right? They group them up. They put them in planes, free plane rides. They fly them to the Middle East and they cut contact with the West. That's the only way you can save Western civilization. That's the best thing you can do for Western civilization. That's the best thing you can do for yourself, by the way, because it will also mean the Western secular influence will not be coming to you and for your children. They will be the best for you too. I think it's the best solution, but I obviously know it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen because the logistics. It's never going to happen because it's a really radical decision. The fact is, let's face it, economy, the lifestyle in Europe is very comfortable. It's very nice. It's very cool. Why would you want to go to desert shitholes? Why would you want to do that? No sane person will want that. No sane person will live in Europe and be like, I'm going to go to Libya. I'm going to go to Egypt. I want to go back to Egypt. Oh, I'm going to have a lot of fun in Egypt. Oh, Egypt's going to be really fun. I can't wait to have a complete destabilization of my government in 10 years. Oh, that's going to be really fun. No one thinks that way, right? I understand you're looking out for yourself. I can't blame you. But the fact is, I'm a frog swimming in a pond, and you're the scorpion asking for a ride. I am not letting you on my back because I know eventually it's in your nature to sting me and you end up killing both of us. And I obviously I don't want that for you. I don't want that for myself. I don't want that for anyone. So that's kind of the main point. That's what I wanted to get at it's a lot spicier, especially considering the season. I haven't seen the live chat, but I can guess the live chat is either foaming at the mouth, how dare you say these things, or virtue signaling about, you're too mean, or alternatively, it can just be full of people saying, you are epic. Thank you for saying this. And that might be, or just all of them, right? So, all right. But rather, I won't say you're talking like a Turk nationalist, but rather a Turk imperialist. Yeah, I'm neither. I'm very clear neither. I don't care. to be honest, about the political state, to be honest, because of the state. Really, it's. I guess it's more like, well, I do care obviously for my own people and stuff like that, but it's like my allegiance is for my family, right, and for my faith. And according to my faith, well, the last thing I should be doing is subverting or stuff like that, right? And to try to destroy from within or stuff like that. That's antithetical. And I should also be looking out for my family, for my loved ones, for my friends, and for those I hold dear to me. I just think that this is my personal opinion. I just think that the Turkish nation is a bit makeshift. It's not like, for example, France, right? France is not a makeshift country. Turkey kind of is. What I mean by makeshift is that it's a little bit like a proposition nation. It's not fully like a proposition nation, right? It still has nation state characteristics and stuff like that, but it's a lot like a proposition nation, right? So someone's shilling Hamza's den. Oh, the same guy who's scared from Seraphim Hamilton. Yeah, that guy. Ha 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 ha. Stay afraid. So, and I hate acting like this. Like, I hate acting like, haha, you're scared or stuff like that. But when they act like this, like this is kind of like another thing. This is one of the biggest reasons why I will never become Muslim. It's not just like I won't become Muslim. I will never become Muslim. Their argumentative strategies and the way the arguments are conducted. I'm not even talking about, they're doing these arguments dishonesty and stuff like that. They're just really bad and very stupid. And I refuse to associate myself with this kind of stupidity and this kind of incompetence. That's really my main take, okay? When your main argument is, where does Jesus say I'm God, worship me in the Bible? Like, I'm not going to respect you. If that is the best kind of argument that you can produce, try harder. Like, really, try harder. If your argument is, Trinity not make sense because there are three divine persons, in a sense of curiosity, I understand that. In a sense of, like, if you still can't understand or doctrine and how we define it, I can't help you. I mean, you're the problem. I mean, I've seen the debate between that Dr. Bo Branson did, and one of the funniest exchanges in that debate is that one of the point that his opponent made was that you cannot have divinity that is caused or source or dependent on another thing, right? Another reality, another divine reality, perhaps, right? Because, for example, we believe that the Son is caused by the Father. He's not created, but caused, right? Like, an analogy of that will be like the sun causing its own heat and light, right? Similar to that. So it's not as if the Son is after the Father, but rather they're simultaneous, right? But there's still that relation. So the objection to that is, well, you can't have something caused and divine. And Dr. Branson asked him a very simple question. Well, what about the attributes of God? I mean, are they caused? Are they, they're dependent? Are they dependent on God? Are the attributes identical isomorphically with God? Are they distinct from God? Well, if they're distinct, then that means there's some kind of a causal dependency relationship. And his opponent just said, I don't know what that has to do with the argument. Like, yeah, like that's the best. By the way, that's the best they have. So don't be mad at me when I think this is a low IQ culture. Okay, I don't see this kind of dumb. Like, I see this in Protestantism. I see this in some forms of Roman Catholicism. So far, as an Orthodox Christian apologist and watching Orthodox Christian apologists and reading the material of the church fathers and such, I don't see this low IQ-ness. I don't see it. I see high IQ edifying stuff. But when I see these kinds of pop apologists, I just see idiocy. I see a lot of dishonesty, to be honest, but I see a lot of idiocy, I see a lot of dishonest argumentation, a lot of argumentation that completely and utterly ignores foundational explanations, like narrative explanations and things like that. And just, stuff like, Bible says God doesn't get tempted, Jesus gets tempted, therefore Jesus is not God, right? Like, stuff like that. Like, anyone with triple digit IQ is going to see through that kind of argumentation, not going to be convinced, okay? And the fact that this is very prevalent tells me a lot about the religion itself. So that is the main take that I have about these kinds of argumentation. Well, I can't take this kind of thinking seriously. That is, when you lost someone on that as a religion, that's something you have to feel. Oh yeah, but what about the Quranic miracles? Scientific. If you have miracles as your proof of being true religion, Yeah, cults have miracles, cults have religious experiences. Um, concerts have a lot of religious experiences that give you some of these dopamine feelings. I mean, but about the like I've seen a lot of the arguments, like the scientific arguments, stuff like that. A lot of them are based on vague statements or science that already exists at the time, or vague statements that are interpreted in certain ways where it can be like, oh, it's a scientific occurrence, scientific miracle that must be. And it's like even if I were to say, okay, there is some kind of a miracle here, you do realize that we believe that there is such a thing as demons. Yeah. So what's the point exactly? Demons can make miracles and illusions. That doesn't prove anything. It doesn't prove anything to me. So why are you using that kind of an argument? If you want to prove to me that my religion is dumb and stupid and wrong, then understand what my religion says first. Very good tip from this. I'm helping you guys. I'm giving you the help that no one has ever given you in your whole life on how to refute Christianity. Understand what Christianity is trying to say. Understand the narrative of Christianity. Understand Christian doctrines. Try to understand them how a Christian will try to understand them, right? And then try to find inconsistencies and try to steelman the Christian argument. Seriously, and try not to depend on low IQ idiots. Try to argue against someone who actually knows Christianity and demonstrate aspects of Christianity that is really contradictory with its own. You're not going to be able to do that, though. That's why you're resorting to low IQ arguments. To be fair, a lot of people are resorting to low IQ arguments against Islam. Okay, so I think it goes both ways. But I've noticed that it goes, the traffic is much more in one way than the other, right? And I see this in a lot of even as a kid, I will ask like basic questions, and I will always get the stupidest, dumbest answers. I will never get actually intelligent answers. It will be these answers that will satiate a ATIQ mongrel, but it won't really satiate someone who actually thinks with his brain, right? And I don't know. I don't get it. I don't personally get it, but I don't want to be too offensive to you guys. I don't want to be too mean. I guess you probably have reasons, but like, for example, another thing is like the whole, for example, like just a very simple example. You venerate the cross. It's like, okay, you venerate the black cube. Like, how do you not think of that? That kind of stuff, it just makes me think that they're really expecting you to be a very stupid person. It's like 1 + 1 + 1 = 3. Yeah, good job. Yeah, that's an argument we haven't responded for 2,000 years. Ooh, 1 + 1. Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know 1 + 1 + 1 = 3. Anyways, I don't want to rant too much about. You're creating a false equivalence between Islam and traditionalists. So now you have someone saying in the chat that Islam is not, the traditionalists are not painting the right picture about what Islam is. Well, my friend, this video is not for you. You are already tricked. You are already subverted. You're already part of the subverted. I'm talking about the based ones, the traditionalist ones. Anyways, there's a lot that can be also said. Is some game physician pointed this out, and I actually wanted to point this out. This is a very if another reason why when push comes to shove, that you can never expect, and it will be unfair to expect a Muslim to have your back. As unfair as that sounds to them, is that, again, the idea of sacrificing oneself for principles, just foreign. In Islam, if let's say that you're a Muslim and you're being persecuted for your religion, and the persecutor comes to you and says, your life for your religion, you are not only allowed. That's the thing. It's not just being allowed. You are obligated. You are obligated to do taqiyya. This is what taqiyya actually is, by the way. To lie about your faith and say, okay, my life, right? And you're actually Muslim and on the down low, but you just confess to be not a Muslim. That is apostasy. That there's no way cutting it. That is apostasy. That is preferring your life. That is preferring the earth over your faith and your religion. That you can't cut it in a, that's clear example of apostasy. The fact that it's, even if it's allowed, the fact that that is something acceptable is a travesty. In Christianity, in Orthodox Christianity, if you, even if you claim to be, I'll still remain Christian, but I'll just confess, that is still apostasy. There's no way. Either martyrdom or apostasy. Those are the choices that you end up having as a Christian. You either end up being an apostate or you end up being a martyr in a situation like that. If you don't confess your faith when push comes to shove, then what's the point of your religion at the end of the day? If you're not willing to live and die for it. But no, here's the thing. Oh, no, we're willing to live and die for it in jihad, in battle, in war. That's clearly not the same thing, right? This is not even a criticism that I am making. It's not even, they don't even think this is a criticism. They think it's a point of strength. I was talking with a bunch of like clear Sharia supporting Muslims. They were friends of my friend, and we were having discussions about Christianity and stuff like that. And one of the arguments they made is that we have monasticism and that's a bad thing. And he said, well, monks, all they do is they live in a solitary place and they just go pray. They're not trying to be useful to people. That's all it is. Usefulness. It's all about usefulness. It's not about spiritual acquisition of virtue. It's about being useful. So for them, monasticism is just foolishness. It doesn't make any sense. For them, being crucified is foolishness. For them, self-sacrifice, sacrificing oneself for their faith is foolishness. You have to be useful. So do you see how Islam is kind of a World Economic Forum religion? Just be useful. Just be a useful slave for the civilization, for the society, and you will be rewarded with 72 virgins. That is, I mean, aside from the 72 virgin stuff, again, that's low-hanging fruits, but that kind of principle about spiritual life is part and parcel about this kind of move away from the spirit to a more empirical, to a more consequentialist even understanding of making oneself useful. You have to be useful in your community, and if you are useful in your community, you will be rewarded by God with, a pleasant afterlife. Whereas in Christianity, it is not about that. It is about acquiring and participating in God's life that He Himself has. This is something absent from this tradition. You see this in Sufi traditions at most, right? But they are heterodox they're kind of heterodox. They're kind of kooky. The ones, even they're accepted, they're kind of like accepted as like, whatever, kind of a group. But even then, it's like, yeah, okay, they're accepted. Let's say they're accepted. There are also schools that reject that kind of thinking. So at the end of the day, what does it matter, right? It ends up being a personal opinion if you're a Muslim. And like if you're going to say, well, the fact that we allow for these diversity of options is a good thing, you have another thing coming. That's a bad thing to have in a religion. So like what? Having a multitude of different theological options to choose from in a religion, well, you're already trying to do that when you're trying to be part of a religious tradition, aren't you? So now there's a religion within a religion. There's a parasynagogue of different religions within this one religion. It's the same thing with Roman Catholicism. They have the Roman Catholicism as the umbrella, and then they have the parasynagogues of Thomism, of Scotism. Now they have the Orthodox, right, Eastern Catholic. Eastern Greek Catholic, Roman Catholicism. They have even Nestorian theology, right? They have like modernist Roman Catholic, like all of these parasynagogues under the one umbrella of Roman Catholicism. That's not a good thing for a religion. That's a bad thing. You're not supposed to have theological schools that oppose each other. I know people talk about that. There were theological schools in history. They didn't see themselves as having theological schools. That's very important to point out, as in Christian history. And you will notice in Orthodox Christianity, you don't have that. You don't have Thomism and Palimism or stuff like that. You only have Orthodox theology. And again, in Islam, even in Sunni Islam, you have multitude of different aqidas. Most Muslims don't even know what an aqidah is. They don't even know what a creed is. They don't even know what an aqidah is. It's one of the most instrumental aspects of their faith. It's about the creedal statements and the theological beliefs that they have in their own religion. Okay? Theological beliefs about what God is and what His characteristic is. It's a very important thing. It's a very crucial thing. But again, based Islam, right? We don't care about that. We care about making money and we care about like having MMA fighters. Yeah, we need to have more MMA fighters. I mean, it's like set your priorities straight. Come on, set your okay. MMA fighters, they're cool. Okay, you have cool MMA fighters, but if that's all you have, then like it's like being a circus monkey at the end of the day, right? I'm not saying the MMA fighters are, but you got to have more is what I'm trying to say, right? It's badass. Yeah, cool. But that's the what I'm trying to get at is that you need to have all of these virtues. You need to have all of these civilizational traits. Being a badass warrior and having nothing else is nothing. I mean, you know, knights, whether they were Russian knights, Roman knights, Italian, French, European knights. I mean, they were badass and they were masculine, they were cool, and they had a lot of different qualities as well, right? They were very vicious in the battlefield, but they were also very professional, very humble. They had various different virtues and that they exemplified in public settings outside of war. And that is the kind of attitude that comes out of Christianity. And this is the kind of attitude that we must have, and we must be. Obviously, there's some like Salatin, right? I think he's close to that kind of an understanding. But does it promote that kind of a general civilization? That's, I think, the question mark. Anyways, that's pretty much all. I guess I went a bit off topic. I think the latter portion, like the last 16 minutes, 17 minutes of what I said, that's a lot more optional. That's a lot more kind of more like, I'm open to being proven wrong on these, some of the things that I said. But what I am very certain about is that once you have based Islam coming to Europe, you're not going to have the paradise that you think you're going to have. You're not going to have the paradise of your European Muslim waifu waiting for you to marry her. Okay, you're not gonna have that. You're not gonna have that dream fantasy. It's not gonna happen. What's going to happen is that Chadullah is gonna have 4 wives. They're gonna divorce them, get 4 other wives. Okay, you're gonna have Andrew Tate pimping the woman that will be your wife, right? You will have these kinds of situations going on, and you will turn to drugs, right? Because you are stifled, right? Your whole development is stifled. You'll turn to drugs. You'll turn to degeneracy. You'll turn to various different problems that is prevalent in these kinds of societies, and you will be just as miserable as many people in the West are. I think a big problem that people don't realize is that different civilizations in different countries have different problems. That doesn't mean that once you have one template and you import it to another country, you're gonna have no more problems, right? Just because that template does not have those problems, you will still have those problems, and you might have extra problems. And most likely, that's what will happen if Europe really became Muslim. As I said, remember Hamza Yusuf, Hamza Yusuf opposing Katie Forbes, who is opposing Skittles marriage, whereas Hamza Yusuf is promoting Skittles marriage, right? Muslim politicians promoting wokeness, promoting all this kind of nonsense, whereas it's the Christian ones that are fighting against it. Remember, they talk about Christians being bad. They show examples of drag queens in Christian churches. But first of all, from my perspective, those are not Christian churches, because I'm an Orthodox Christian. I don't care about these straying around Lutheran, Presbyterian. Okay, I don't care about them. From my perspective, they're also not Christian in a sense, right? But you don't get to say those kinds of things and then have your own degeneracies even in Europe at the same time. You don't get to have that right. You don't have that right. You don't get to say that kind of stuff. I get to say that kind of stuff, right? In a sense, without being a hypocrite. But you don't have that advantage, right? And it's not about having that advantage. Really, religion is not something about I have the coolest converts, you have the least coolest people in your religion. It's really not about that too. Okay, it's about what that religion makes you at the end of the day. What it turns you into is what religion is about. It's what Christianity is about, and that is the end goal. One of the end goals, that is to say, about what is to happen. So, again, sorry for making you mad, but I think this is something that needs to be said, because every single time this topic comes up over and over again, based Islam, we'll say again, it's over and over again with the whole Tateism stuff. We get I think this should demonstrate to people that have actual valid normal concerns, are not, puppets of the mind, they're not being mind puppeted by a bunch of idiots, but actually are strongly thinking about certain things. I hope you realize that Islam is not the solution to the problem that we have. Really, the solution to the problem that we have, which maybe I might talk about it in more detail in a separate stream, is still Christianity. Christianity is a part and parcel of European civilization, but it's the true form of Christianity, not the and that true form of Christianity is Orthodox Christianity, which has been lost since 1,000 years ago in the West, and gradually has been lost in the West since 1,000 years. And that is the ideal that really we are to strive towards. Remember the Christian Roman Empire, right? What people call the Byzantine Empire. It is perhaps the most fascinating and highest level of that time, civilization that any civilization can really properly reach. Obviously, not without its problems, many, many different problems. But even if we assume that the Byzantine Empire started in with Saint Constantine, more than a millennium of survival is nothing to scoff at. More than a millennium of survival. What other civilization has survived that long? You're not going to find it. What civilization has survived half as long? You're going to find very, very few of them, right? So that kind of gets to the point of what I think the goal of Christians should be in the West instead. So thank you for listening. And hopefully I'll make more streams and videos, and hopefully this spicy content will be helpful.